Hello, everybody. I'm Bob226, aka Josiah. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show. We're starting a little bit early today. I just got a little hyped up. I just want to say, yesterday, DFS Army crushed in NFL content. Between geeking out the cheat sheets, the tournament tactics shows, the 3 for 3 with DFS North, Bobby Wow and Burns with the Shark Chronicle article. The VIP content was pretty spot on yesterday. I know on my cheat sheet we talked about Zay Jones. There weren't a lot of secrets. There were some injuries that hurt, like Michael Carter Jr. That sucked. The Jets defense ended up being in the nuts lineup for the Millie. So, I mean, I was feeling great. I was feeling really good yesterday. Definitely some guys to shout out. Colts 801 had a top 100 line in the 20 max. Top Nuck had a 5K win. Took second place in a single entry contest. Congrats, man. Fowler, second place in soccer. Really just across the board. A lot of DFS Army members crushed. Sorry if I missed anybody. But more importantly, let's dig into this NBA slate. Yesterday was good. Let's try to have a good night again tonight with some NBA wins. Per usual, guys, we have a ton of injury news that we're going to have to figure out on this slate. I'll touch on who's like questionable, who's TBD, who we have to worry about, maybe some potential pivots on this show. Of course, on the pre-lock show, we will dig much deeper into our actual strategy on what we want to do on this slate and who I will be increasing exposure to in the domination station. To have access to the VIP content I've mentioned and the pre-lock show that will happen later today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. Click the link in the description if you're not a member, and feel free to use the promo code BOB for a 10% discount to be able to have access. Chilo, man, and Kenny G, nice to see you. You've been so close to getting a takedown in multiple sports. I've seen you, man. Please keep your head up high because you are so close in your process. What you're doing right now is pretty spot on. So definitely keep it up. But all right, guys, let's get into this slate. All right, we have the Hawks against the Sixers. On the Hawks side of things, some pretty big news with Capella. Capella is TBD as of right now, so we will see if he actually ends up being in or out. If he's out, we can definitely look at a Okongwu and guys of that sort. If he's in, I'll let the DS figure out what's going on. I'll let the DS decide what it wants to do. I don't think I'll be too excited to force exposure to any Hawks if they're all healthy. But Trae Young typically projects well, so I wouldn't be shocked if I get a ton of him. Octavius, nice to see you in the chat as well. On the Sixers side of things, we have Joel Embiid. He's TBD. PJ Tucker is also TBD. So is Matisse Thybulle. So quite a few guys that we're waiting on. Of course, Tyrese Maxey and James Harden are out still. So, I mean, Milton has been on freaking fire. He's averaged 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, 8 assists with Embiid out for the last 4 games. So if Embiid's out, I'm happy to go to Milton. If Embiid's in, I'm happy to go to Milton. But I think Embiid would be an interesting. I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being lower owned pivot, especially if he's questionable until we get closer and closer to lock. I'm always willing to play Embiid. If he's out there, I have to assume that he's going to be relatively healthy enough to play. Just because he has been so injury prone, the Sixers tend to be careful with him. All right. Moving on to the next game, we have the Timberwolves against the Washington Wizards. In this game, we have Jaden McDaniels, TBD. We have Jordan McLaughlin, TBD. And, of course, Terrence Prince is still out. On the Wizards side of things, Kyle Kuzma is TBD. Roy Hachimura is TBD. And Johnny Davis is TBD. The only thing I really care about here is probably Kyle Kuzma. If Kyle Kuzma's out, I will be more interested in Bradley Beal. Also, I would be more interested in Kristaps Porzingis as well. But outside of that, nothing really too exciting in these games. Awesome. D. Kevin said almost took down Slate last night. NBA and NFL. Oh, like when you get so close to taking something down, like I try to I try to make sure that people understand, like, just getting close to a takedown is something that so many people don't get to experience. So really, please, like, keep your head up high too. Just like Chilo, keep doing what you're doing. Don't try to get cute and creative now. Try to keep doing your process, because once you start hitting like those top 100 lines, you just have to get it. Like your process is right. You're just trying to get it all to click on the right time. And I've had some of those takedowns. You just have to keep steady with it. Don't get too into your head. Sup, King? Nice to see you in here, man. Nice to see you. All right. So yeah, Kyle Kuzma out. I would be more interested in Bradley Beal and even Kristaps Porzingis a little bit as well. So definitely some things to consider. Minnesota, none of them. Like, I think Rudy Gobert is going to continue to be a value for us because he's so cheap. Similar to like Denny, they're just both Denny Avdija. They're just both value options at their position that, at least as of right now, we can consider. If we get more value options, I don't think they would be popping for us as much, but we'll see. All right, next game, Hornets versus the Celtics. On the Hornets side of things, Ball is still out. Hayward is still out. Dennis Smith Jr. is out. We know what this looks like. PJ Washington has had some crazy usage as of late with Hayward and Ball out at 32.1%. That's something that I really didn't expect to see out of him. Rozier at 31.3% and Oubre at 26.4%. So definitely something that I want to keep an eye on. The matchup is tough against the Celtics, but if Jason Tatum's out, he's TBD right now. This is even a little bit of a softer matchup than it looks like on paper for some guys like PJ and Oubre. So something I want to keep a good pulse on. I don't know if this is a spot that I want to attack super high, but it's a spot that I have a star on that I want to dig a little bit deeper into for my research. And on the pre-lock show, we'll see if I end up going overweight on PJ and Rozier and Oubre, because as of right now, it's definitely a potential exciting spot for me. We all know I love playing bigs against the Hornets. Al Horford is going to be in my player pool. To what extent, we'll see how the slate shapes out, but Al Horford will definitely be in there. He also is always slightly under-owned to me, even in like favorable matchups. I like it. Outside of that, of course, if Tatum's out, then we will be loading up on guys like Brown, Brogdon, and Smart. They all see an increase in usage when Tatum is out, and I would have absolutely no concerns going there. So yeah, definitely a game to keep on our radar. The spread is slightly concerning, but again, if Tatum's out, I would feel even better about that spot. All right, the Toronto Raptors. I feel like I haven't had to talk about the Raptors since the big explosion, chalk explosion. The last time I went really heavy on them. The Raptors don't usually hurt me like that, but they did, I guess, last week. But as of right now, we have Pascal Siakam questionable, Scotty Barnes questionable, Delano Banton questionable, Otto Porter out, Precious Achiuwa out. Definitely a situation that I'm going to keep a good pulse on. Like, if Siakam and Barnes are out, I'm going to have a good chunk of Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby. That's definitely going. Those are going to be guys I have a lot of exposure to if Siakam and Barnes are out. But I do realize that the matchup is not favorable, and they're going to have very, very low ownership. So ideally, I won't have to have too much exposure to be over the field. But we'll see. We'll see on the pre-lock show what that ends up looking like. On the Cleveland side of things, again, this is not a great matchup for either side. And so with the Cleveland Cavaliers being, well, we have Jared Allen out, Lamar Stevens out, Karis LeVert probable, Kevin Love out, Dylan Windler out, Rubio out. Interesting. Donovan Mitchell's usage and Garland's assist rates, according to Underdog, have both increased a ton with Levert out. So with him being probable, I am not super interested in the Cavaliers right now if he ends up being healthy. I think we can always take shots on guys like Evan Mobley with Jared Allen out, just more rebounds for him. But again, the matchup just isn't great. So not super excited about it. But again, if guys like Siakam and Barnes are out, I'll be more willing to take shots on Mobley with an easier matchup, and I would have more exposure to the Raptors. So we'll see what happens there. Probably going to be a little crazy pre-lock, but at least I already have a little bit of an idea of what I want to do there, depending on the news. All right. Next, we have the Nets against the Magic. Again, we probably don't have this matchup all the time, but in my head, we've seen it a ton. But I might be crazy. On the Magic side of things, we have a long list. We have Wendell Carter Jr., TBD, Jalen Suggs, TBD, Mo Bamba, TBD, Fultz is out, Chuma Okeke is TBD, Terrence Ross is TBD with an illness, Cole Anthony is still out, and Isaac is out. So if Suggs is out, then that's definitely a nice boost for Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, definitely the guys who are typically leading this team. For me, I like to play studs against the Nets. The Nets have been a pretty good defensive team, but these games tend to go back and forth a little bit. So I am fine getting exposure to guys like Banchero and Suggs, but really, we're going to need to wait and see what happens with the injury news. Like if Wendell Carter Jr. is out, and Okeke is out, and a lot of these, and Mo Bamba's out, then of course we're going to want a lot of Bol and Banchero. So we just need to see what happens injury-wise here. If everyone's healthy, then this game becomes a lot more boring just because the Nets are better defensively than most of us like to think. Also on the net side of things, Simmons is finally kind of priced relatively appropriately, so he's not going to pop for us. But again, he does have triple-double upside, so we can definitely still consider him. Claxton's also still being seen at a value, and Claxton and Simmons have been playing on the court at the same time, so we no longer have to worry about them splitting minutes 50-50 as much. I feel like I also have to talk about Royce O'Neal too, just because he's been breaking slates as of lately. So just remember to keep him in your player pool. Those of you guys who watch the pre-lock show, you guys know I don't take out a ton of guys in my player pool anyway. So he's just one of those guys we need to keep in there. I'm probably not going to like force exposure, but I'm expecting when I do my runs that he'll probably be in at least a few lines, so I'm not ruined if he goes off. All right, now probably one of the bigger games on the slate news-wise is this Pelicans and Thunder game, really focusing on the Pelican side of it. As of right now, Brandon Ingram is looking doubtful. CJ McCollum is out. Larry Nance Jr. is questionable. Najee Harris is questionable. And Trey Murphy Jr. is in. So this is a huge increase to Zion Williamson and Alvarado. They have really been the main guys who have seen the largest increases when Ingram and McCollum are out, and they're going to be the guys I have a ton of exposure to. I'm not going to forget about Trey Murphy Jr. either. I think really we're going to be able to attack this game in a lot of different ways. Herb Jones is a low usage 3-and-D guy who can go multiple games doing absolutely nothing. But Jose Alvarado, he's a point guard for 4,300 on the Pelicans. I think this game is going to be one that I want a lot of exposure to, and I am more than happy to take some risk on some of these Pelicans as well. I know last week there were some sharp guys on Devontae Graham. I feel like he had some upside. I don't know if I feel that way today, but I'll definitely keep a good pulse on him. Again, like just a game that I want to have a lot of exposure to. The Thunder, from what I heard over the weekend, apparently hurt a lot of feelings. Again, the Thunder, they're a young team. They play around with their rotation a lot. They're going to do weird shit in the second half of games sometimes. So just be prepared. I think Poku is always in play. We've seen him hit upside time and time again this season, but don't be surprised if he randomly doesn't start or if he randomly doesn't start the second half. They do weird stuff like that. Similar story with Giddey. Giddey has upside. This is a easier matchup than it looks like on paper. So I think that could be a sneaky spot to consider potentially. But again, we've seen time and time again, and I know a lot of people who have already written him off for this season just because he will break your heart with a very, very low score in a nutshell. So I'm definitely going to keep him on my radar as well, though. Valanciunas, his minutes are a roller coaster of emotions. And it's really hard for me to trust him, but I do want to dig a little bit deeper into his minutes and try to find some sort of pattern. I thought I had one down pretty locked. So I just want to make sure that after his last few performances that my kind of theory is still correct. And we'll, of course, talk about that on the pre-lock show. Jeff Roma Green said, can you see Jones on SGA? I can. I've seen them use Jones against guards before. I don't know if they feel like they will have to. I'm gonna kind of reach out to some sharp guys I know and see if they think what's gonna happen there. I mean, typically, I really don't think Jones is going to jump to SGA, but that's definitely worth thinking about. For those of you who don't know, SGA has been the all-star, the guy this entire season. Even with CJ out, though, at this 10,500 price tag, I don't love this matchup. It's going to be hard for me to get there on this slate, but I understand the need to or the want to. All right. Next up, we have the Rockets against the Nuggets. The Rockets are relatively healthy. Jayshawn Tate is out. The Nuggets have Michael Porter Jr. as doubtful, Bones Highland as questionable, and Jeff Green is out. Now, the important news here is Michael Porter Jr. If he is out, then this game becomes much more interesting. I don't like playing Nikola Jokic when Jamal Murray and MPJ are all in and healthy, but MPJ being out does increase the usage a little bit for Jokic, so I'm slightly more interested in having some exposure. We'll see how much I get when I start running the DS later today, but I'm at least open to it, whereas earlier today was not on board. Of course, if MPJ is out, then Aaron Gordon, who has had multiple good games this season, is much more interesting. Similar story with both Bruce Brown and KCP. Just more shots to go around since MPJ won't be there to keep missing like he has been doing all season long. Outside of that, super soft matchup against the Rockets, so that's something we don't have to really worry too much about. There's not really a great defender, I fear, from like the Nuggets standpoint. From the Rockets perspective, the Nuggets have been awful against guards all season. I love playing guards against the Nuggets. Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green are a little bit more volatile. They're young, so that's going to happen. I'm open to taking shots on them here, though, just because of the soft matchup and what should be low ownership since they are healthy. So wouldn't be shocked if one of them end up popping up on my leverage sheet today. Good spot. Next up, we have the Bulls against the Jazz. On the Bulls side of things, we have Alex Caruso. He's questionable in this slate. Lonzo Ball, of course, is still out. The Bulls, when they're all healthy, aren't super exciting. What is interesting, though, is Nikola Vucevic has the soft matchup against the Jazz. The Jazz have not been good in the paint. They actually have the worst paint defense in the league by 3 points, which is really, really bad. So definitely a spot where we can target Vucevic, even though everyone else on this team is healthy, which isn't usually a spot that I like to attack. On the Utah Jazz side of things, there's some interesting pieces here. There's Lauri Markkanen, questionable. Barmaro is questionable. Mike Conley, of course, is out. And Rudy Gay is out. I've been on Malik Beasley for a while. At least early in the day. I mean, I wasn't really super high on him on Friday either. I was just kind of riding the hot hand, and that worked out. So I might have a similar thought process today. But again, I really don't love the matchup against the Bulls. They've been a really good defensive team kind of outside of the paint. So not my favorite spot really across the board. If Markkanen's out. I have some interest in guys like Clarkson and Olynyk. If you're looking for some value, I wouldn't hate like a Vanderbilt. Maybe Kessler, but that's a little of a thin play. I think there might be better value on the slate. But definitely some interesting pieces that we'll have to keep a pulse on. All right, guys, two more games. Next up, we have the Suns against the Kings. The Suns are pretty much boring at this point. We know what happens with them. We have Chris Paul out. Cam Johnson's still out. I do think this is a nice spot to be open to taking some shots and getting leverage on some of these Sun guys. It wouldn't shock me if Devin Booker is one of my leverage plays tonight, just because I like playing Devin Booker. He's really the only true stud on this team, and Chris Paul is out, and he has a softer matchup against the Kings, even though they have been pretty good so far this season. So might need to look into that a little bit deeper. Outside of that, of course, campaign, his price is not a value. So like, he's not the super lock that we like for him to be. When it comes to the Kings, they're all healthy. I think you guys kind of know my philosophy on the Kings. I'm just going to let the DS do what it wants to do. I'm not going to really mess with them too much in this spot. It's not really a great matchup. If I get them, I get them, but I'm not going to tinker with them too much unless there's a random injury that pops up, but I don't really foresee that happening. This is a potential interesting spot for Ayton. The Kings have allowed the 6th most points in the paint per game. So I do think that this could be a potential ceiling spot for him at lower ownership, which is something we haven't seen for a while, which is because his price has increased a little bit. Preliminary cores, James, it's too early. It's too early. Too early for my cores. Really, it's too early for anyone to be having cores. Usually I don't really run the DS until like 3 or 4 p.m. Just to kind of see what's going on the slate, who's popping in the domination station, because that's when we start to get news. Like, really running the DS this early is not really worth it. Yeah, you'll actually see cores for me around 5-ish, 5:30. Sometimes I kind of figure out cores during the pre-lock show. It just kind of depends on how the day is going, how much news we actually have. Nice to see you, Kenny Ken. All right, guys. Last game on slate. We have the Lakers, probable as always. LeBron James. We have Anthony Davis, questionable as always. What's actually going to happen here? I mean, I think ideally they both play, which makes them neither of them really all that interesting. The Pacers, of course, Nembhard is TBD. Dorte, Tees are still out. Ultimately, this game isn't super exciting for me. I mean, I think Tyrese Halliburton is always someone you can consider. Of course, the Lakers have been able to be attacked against bigs. I think Miles Turner could have a game to really show out for the team that he probably wants to be on instead. That wouldn't shock me at all. Outside of that, at least as of right now, not super excited. I mean, bigs on the Pacers are always going to be exciting for me when they're facing the Lakers. So if I had to guess where I get the most exposure, it would probably be there in this game. And probably not a ton of Lakers if they're all healthy. They've been winning, though, guys. The Lakers are trying to actually make a playoff spot, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing how this slate turns out. Hope everyone's able to join the pre-lock show. Again, that will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time later today. Let's get it together. Let's get this slate going, and look forward to seeing everyone later today. Peace.